And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio. Thank you all for joining us. And what an incredible night last night. What an incredible night last night when we're taking a look at the issue involving guns in the Treasure Valley. Think about this. At 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Brad Little didn't get a chance to make it there, and we are sorry for that. He had a situation with his family, a family emergency. And we had Dr. Tommy Ahlquist. We had Congressman Labrador. And I was amazed at the amount of people that showed up last night. I was amazed that we, sat there and did our own thing and, just kind of looked at stuff. And I was really proud of Greg Pruitt and the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance. And it kind of hit me traveling throughout the day yesterday. Had a chance to hang out with our friend Ryan at the Independence Indoor Shooting. Had a chance to meet a lot of folks. And I think what we're seeing here today, and you might see it in your office building, you might see it everywhere else, and this is the divergence of the two Americas, where you have the liberal progressives, the emotional folks, believing that if they pass gun laws, they're going to keep kids safe. Look, there are a ton of gun laws that are trying to keep people safe in Chicago or New York City or Washington, D.C., or any of those other places, right? Are they keeping kids safe in Chicago? No, more people are dying. More people are getting killed. Now, the president has said he wants to take a look at banning bump stocks, and he's going to meet with kids today. We'll get into that. But I truly believe that, again, what we're seeing, and I said this in the Miller Minute, is an attempt to use a tragedy and to use an emotion to take away people's right to keep and bear arms. And you want to protect people? I think you go with the enhanced concealed carry. You give people the opportunity to protect themselves. It's very easy to vilify guns, but here's the other issue at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. These have all happened in gun-free zones. When people have had the opportunity to fire back, they've taken these cowards down. Right? But the press will not report that. They want to go with the big lead, which is, hey, Donald Trump's a nut. Hey, we need to ban these things. Well, there were school shootings, and a lot of school shootings, under Bill Clinton's assault weapons ban. And it breaks my heart when I see this. And I'm walking around the streets and, hey, we've got to do something. Let's have a march. Let's call lawmakers killers. Is that really going to, get the streets safer? Calling people killers? Let's take a listen to some of the issues that happened yesterday.
It was 73 to 36. And that's too much.
This is a reaction to the Florida legislators not voting to ban assault weapons. And really, what are assault weapons? That's what the media calls weapons that they don't agree with. And I think that it's going to be a challenge, but we have to take a look at ourselves and say, well, are we willing to stand up and take the heat? Are we willing to say, let's take a breath? I think that's the big issue. And, I'm sitting here listening to this stuff, going back and forth, and what about the teachers that died? We hear so much, and I said this yesterday, I'd take a bullet for my kids, and these teachers took bullets for their kids, right? And instead of honoring the teachers, we've got people pushing legislation. George Clooney throwing in $500,000 for this march to send a message. What message is he going to send? Look, let's go to Chicago. Let's do the show from Chicago and see what happens there. Let's go on the streets of Chicago. They got more laws than any place else. And there was a person yesterday, I guess, Channel 7 was reporting. Channel 7 was reporting that I'm sitting here taking a look at this, and that a guy turned in his guns because he felt guilty about guns. Really? Is that the issue? At 580-5436, 580-KIDO. That's going to make a difference? Is that how the West was won? Julie in Boise with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning, Kevin. I wanted to approach the issue more on the preventative side. I would like to privatize a national tip line because the FBI fell down on this. Had they taken and pursued the tip, none of this would have happened. Also, cleaning up the databases for the military and putting it in the national privatization tip line. And then we'd have more transparency, and people can get fired in private business. Unlike government, where they stay there forever, and really nothing happens to them. There's no consequence. The FBI should have stopped this before it happened, and that's my comment.
Well, the FBI doesn't seem to be taking any heat for it.
No, because Mueller decided to come out with the indictments for the Russians at the same time. That's what they do. They take away the heat. The FBI is so focused on the wrong things. They need to prioritize. If they can't do this, they don't have the time, they need to privatize it, create jobs, get accountability in there, and transparency. The judicial system is the same way. I know people that could not go to civil court because the criminal courts were backed up by illegal aliens for 10 years, and they died waiting to go to court. That's what happens to the infrastructure. It's not just roads. It's the social infrastructure, too. I would like to privatize the national hotline, and students can man the lines. We need to have a process that works. The FBI is totally responsible also. And that's what I have to say.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller in the morning here, continuing on, taking your calls about this issue. And now you have the President of the United States saying, well, time to take a look at bump stocks, time to take a look at banning those. But bump stocks really weren't used in this case, right? And the issue of gun control causing some intense debates around the country. Representative Mike Kaufman of Colorado held a town hall meeting in Greenwood Village yesterday. Some people weren't happy when he suggested that better school security is the answer to gun violence.
Force has to be met with force. Force has to be met with force.
Well, I agree with that. Force has to be met with force. Now, again, as Julie said, where was the FBI? Where was everybody else in this? At 580-5436, 580-KIDO. We're having this intense debate. You have people going toe-to-toe in Florida and saying all these things that we need to get rid of these things. There are good, honest people. The majority of the people in America today that own guns, that take care of guns, do so in an equitable, responsible way. And yet you have people wanting to take away their rights.
There's a pervasive feeling, particularly for young people in schools, that they just aren't safe. And so the focus seemed to be on gun control legislation versus making sure that the schools are secure. And I think there needs to be a balance between both.
Well, I think on the other hand, aren't we acting on raw emotion?
I signed a memorandum directing the Attorney General to propose regulations to ban all devices that turn legal weapons into machine guns.
The President supports not having the use of bump stocks, and we expect further action on that in the coming days.
Right. But is that going to stop people who are, again, dedicated to causing chaos? And if you had to pick at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, between banning bump stocks, more gun control legislation, or arming citizens, which would it be? And I go back to what Greg Pruitt had to say last night at the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance rally at the forum. The libs are coming in. The progressives are coming in. They're doing their very best to take over. We see it in the legislature. We see it in the city of Boise. We see it everywhere, right? So at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, it's time to be unpopular. It's time to take a stand. Because I fear that if we don't take a stand, there's going to be nothing left to stand for. So I'd like to hear from you next. KIDO Talk Radio time is 6:17. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio.
Banning a gun that is going to prevent these things is actually loving these children.
There is evil around us. And where does that evil go when they want to kill lives? They go to safe zones that are not protected. And they go there, and no amount of regulation on the gun is going to stop what they do. Their plan, their evil, their intentions are to go kill people.
Both oppose raising the age to legally purchase a rifle to 21 and feel the age should stay at 18. Both candidates also fear there should be no limit on the amount of ammunition individuals purchase in a certain amount of time.
And there we have it. That was from Channel 6 last night covering our gubernatorial forum, actually the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance's forum. We appreciate Greg Pruitt having us there. Phone numbers here, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller in the morning. Let's go to Cindy in Caldwell. Good morning, Cindy.
Well, good morning, Kevin. I can't believe you. No wonder Raul Labrador gave you a compliment last night with your ability to just come right out there, kind of like I'm of the era of Bob Barker. Come on down and get people focused and ready to listen. And good job, Kevin. It was great. And both of those candidates, it was interesting. If I had a teenager, I would have loved to have them sitting in that audience because as everyone, different, let's just say there are two candidates running, I was glad to see some of their vision, their strong stand on issues was very, very similar. And I say correct because just like Dr. Alquist said and gave his little vignette about being in the emergency room, perpetrators of evil will continue like they did yesterday. There was there was a robbery in Meridian. They will continue to act. No laws are going to stop that. And in the spirit of dialogue, just everyone there last night was able to conduct themselves as adults, starting and ending with prayer. And tomorrow's my birthday. I'll be 72. And my blessing, Kevin Miller, I looked up, and who comes in but Ammon Bundy? That is my present, to see that son of his and making calls so that both of those candidates you have in Idaho, they are so strong on the Constitution. And Ammon brought a lot of constitutions, and he even had a biker one, and it was by, I guess biker people know, Harley people, Stan Ellsworth. And every call I make, I'm doing it. And when I looked at Ammon's son, and Ammon let me give him, a big hug, I was just thrilled to see him there. And what is he doing? Sitting there respectively. He's just such a quiet, kind of meek, man, but meek in strength with all these constitutions that he gave both the candidates tables. And that's great. And so I take it seriously to support the Constitution. And personally, for me, I was just blessed to see that he's still going forward, with his family.
Yeah, it was very nice to see him, and like I said, it was he is a very quiet guy. A lot of people don't know that about Ammon Bundy. I had a chance to just reintroduce myself to him, and it was good to see him. It was good to see, Dr. Alquist and Congressman Labrador. It would have been great if the lieutenant governor could have made it. And our thoughts and prayers go to him. By the way, we're reporting now that Billy Graham has died. So this just in, Billy Graham, America's pastor, has died.
Well, Kevin Miller, we've got Franklin out there who stood with our president the day he was inaugurated. And you know what? He's home with his Jesus, that he went around the world and was just telling people this is the way home to heaven, because my Bible says absent from the body, present with the Lord. And that is good enough for me and Yahoo. When I'm called up there, anytime I'm ready to go. Yeah, that's just another one I can't wait to go see.
Well, don't leave us yet.
Well, that's up to God, Kevin Miller, but look at you. There's so many people that have a legacy out there like you and younger people, and that's what I love to see in that audience, that passing the baton on, and that's what that's all about, to push back until the good Lord decides to come back. So,
You know what I really liked, and the comment that I took away from it last night?
What?
Was when Dr. Ahlquist said, it'll be refreshing for the people of Idaho to have a governor who's engaged.
Yes, wasn't that? Yeah, I love that word. Exactly. Yes, focused, engaged. Good for you, Kevin.
Well,
yes.
I just thought he did a great service when he said that, because I don't think this current governor has been engaged in many, many years.
No, I think they both stood very strong, and I think people should be so blessed to look at the information, look at the issues, because, as I said, you have two very good candidates, and I just think that I was just blessed the way they conducted themselves, so in the spirit of debate and being able to handle that situation. And I did give him, I am hoping that he wasn't sure which family member was ill last night, but you're right, Kevin. Pray to God that he knows that Governor, whoever was, the lieutenant governor's family, that they will just come through that.
Yeah, we pray for their recovery and hope to see all of them again. It was a good time, and Greg and the folks did a great job, as did you, who tried to get me to wear a Labrador sticker last night.
Well, Kevin, you had a red tie on, and isn't it interesting? I mean, I was kind of laughing. We both were, because at one end of the table, you've got, their signs are the same. It's kind of funny to me. It's like people could get a little confused by that. They're both red signs. You realize that, right? But I just wanted to just see what you thought. I don't think you're going to do that, but anyway. You know what? It's okay by me. I know my reason, and I very strongly came out in the beginning. Everyone has a reason, because I was sad, and our representative Labrador said that when our president was running for office, he took a lot of heat from his own party by trying to do all he could to make sure that our President Trump got elected, and I always respected him for that. Well, we appreciate you. Thank you very much, Cindy. Well, Kevin, you just keep pressing on there. Now you got another job. You could go on TV, be like Bob Barker. Come on down. I don't even know how you wake up in the morning and you're so ready to go. Me, I'm on my second cup of coffee and I'm still like, okay, get going. You take care, Cindy. I tell you, Kevin, at 72, I got to give all these cares to Jesus to keep going. All right, Kevin. I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye, Kevin. Bye-bye. Great job. Bye. Thank you. 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Breaking news right now. America's pastor, Billy Graham, has passed away at the age of 99. If you would like to share your thoughts on Billy Graham, what he has meant to you, what he has meant to presidents, we would love to hear your thoughts at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. 627, time for traffic and weather together. And Kevin Miller here at KIDO Talk Radio. Coming up, we'll go to Fox News for more on the death of Billy Graham. And we'll get your thoughts at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. But our friends on Fox, they're going continuous coverage. When we have that available to you, we will share that with you. Again, America's pastor, dead at 99. Billy Graham, who committed himself to making life better for Christians. Billy Graham, who committed himself to God, to faith, to family, to freedom. We certainly will miss him. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie. Good morning. And let's go to our coverage of Billy Graham, dead at 99, on Fox News on KIDO Talk Radio.
When he started to get it, first commenced his ministry in California, it was regularly covered by the newspaper magnate William Randolph Hearst. And his papers covered his revival meetings closely. And then that is one of the reasons and one of the ways that Billy Graham became a Christian superstar. Plus the fact that his message was coming at the time of cultural change in the United States. He spoke out against the evils of communism, because that was one of the things that people were most worried about in the 40s. And in an interview, Billy Graham stated in 1954, either communism must die or Christianity must die, because it is actually a battle between Christ and Antichrist.
Sorry.
And then I was just going to say, with the advent of nuclear weapons and the fragility of life, people turned to the comfort of Billy Graham because they needed answers.
All right, let's bring in Todd Starnes now. And Todd is a Voice of Christianity's radio show, also themed through that. Todd, maybe you can perspective the life of Billy Graham.
Well, I can only imagine the scene in heaven this morning.
I know, right?
All those tens of thousands of people who came to know Christ at those crusades over the years, welcoming Billy Graham home. What an amazing morning that is.
Right. It's hard because you want to fight. We have to fight back the tears because, gosh, the one thing that's most important to many of us, and I know to you, Todd, is your relationship with Christ. And this guy changed so many lives. It's sad for those who are left behind, but so I can rejoice knowing that he's in heaven, and that's what his whole life was about.
No, Angela, I understand exactly how you feel, and I think many of us as believers understand that. Certainly he is no longer in pain, no longer suffering, and he's been reunited with Ruth, and of course that great crusade team, George Beverly Shea, who sang those great songs. What a great day in heaven it is today, but very sad for all of us left behind.
He has run the race, hasn't he?
He has, a good race.
Yeah.
And so many people were exposed to his message. 215 million, they say, in 185 countries. I remember when I was a kid growing up in Kansas, my parents, and I was raised Catholic, we went to a Billy Graham revival. And I remember it was in an auditorium.
Something you've never seen before.
There was not one spare seat. It was about 100 degrees in there, and Billy Graham was electric.
Steve, if you remember back, I guess, when I was growing up back in the 1970s, when it was Billy Graham Crusade Week on national television, they would broadcast those in prime time. And I remember as a child, my parents would take me to those crusades and singing those songs and being a part of those massive stadium events. And here's what's really amazing about the Billy Graham story. He came to become known on the national stage, believe it or not, because of the mainstream media. That's how amazing God works sometimes.
Well, a couple of things that stand out is he didn't just show up on stage. He showed up at the White House with 12 separate presidents. A lot of people reached to him in times of crisis, and a lot of famous people did too. How did he straddle both? Yet he was famous, but yet he had a simple message.
Brian, there's a great story about Billy Graham when he was invited to meet President Eisenhower back in the day. He came out of the White House and he was asked by some reporters, what did you guys talk about? And he just, he answered the question. But he didn't realize that in doing so, he offended President Eisenhower, who thought that he might have broken a confidence, which of course he did not. But that taught him a lesson, and he really held that confidence with presidents from that point forward in close confidence. And the presidents trusted him, and they believed that he was one of the regular guys.
Yeah, and he was. I remember when I was probably, I guess, in college. There was that infomercial where it talked about his life and his wife's life, and you could give money to their organization by buying the video about his wife's life. I have yet to throw it away. I used to have a stack of DVDs. Now we don't need those anymore. It's one that I've always kept, and I found it the other day, and I'll watch it occasionally because she is a lady that I strive to be like.
One of the amazing stories about their ministry and how they didn't, become like some of the big evangelists, television evangelists. They really made a point early on, a pact, that they would travel, groups together, so there'd never be any question about motives or anything of that nature. And they really did live a very simple life, there in North Carolina. I've had a chance to be at the Billy Graham Training Center there right outside of Asheville in Montreat. What a beautiful place that is, and it's just so simple. And I think that really it goes back to the heart of Billy Graham's message.
Sure.
It was about that relationship with Christ.
And it was back in 1992 that Billy Graham was diagnosed with a disease much like Parkinson's, and he's lived there ever since. Franklin Graham took over the ministry for the most part at age 95, and we heard Lauren Green detail this a little bit. He had a big birthday party. 900 people showed up, and they showed a video called The Final Sermon. But Todd, going back to when he would do the big revivals in the auditoriums and the stadiums, at the end, if you remember, at the end of his sermon, he would have people come down to the stadium because essentially you were showing that you were going to accept Christ into your life, and you were making a public statement by doing that.
That's right, and that's part of, growing up as a Southern Baptist. Ainsley, you know all about this, is that you walk the aisle. You make that public profession of faith in Christ. I've been watching the movie on Netflix, The Crown, and this season of The Crown, it covered the moment that Billy Graham went to London for that huge crusade, and that was an entire segment of the show was illustrating the relationship that Queen Elizabeth had with Billy Graham.
When was
this
that?
Intimacy. Oh gosh, this was back in the 1950s.
Right.
And it was amazing because the establishment, they didn't understand Billy Graham's message, but Queen Elizabeth, who was a devout believer in the Lord, it really demonstrated and illustrated their relationship they had together. It was really remarkable.
I heard that show was good. I'll have to watch it now. He was very close. You mentioned Eisenhower, also with President Johnson and President Nixon, correct?
That's right. And also President Carter, who was a fellow Southern Baptist. And again, it really was not about politics with Billy Graham. It was about this relationship with Christ, and it was really being about a spiritual advisor behind the scenes. He wasn't looking for fame. He wasn't looking for glory. He was truly offering that spiritual guidance that a president, the leader of the free world, really needed.
But when you're an age of 99 and you pass away after accomplishing everything he did, it's a different type of passing, isn't it?
I think so, Brian. And but again, I mean, he had all of his faculties about him. His mind was very sharp. The pastor of the First Baptist Church in Spartanburg was his personal pastor there in the area, and he would go up weekly to visit with Billy Graham and to pray with him and to be with him.
Sure. As we look back at the sweep of his life, Billy Graham dead this morning at the age of 99. Clearly, in the very beginning, he was a powerful speaker, and that's why he got the radio job. But what would have happened had television not been invented? Because that really is the medium that he embraced, and he worked it so well.
It was back in the 1940s when he was doing that famous crusade in Los Angeles, where the publisher of I believe it was the LA Times sent out a message to all of the other newspapers that they owned around the country, saying "Puff Graham." That was the infamous telegram message, "Puff Graham," and as a result of that, Billy Graham became a household name. And I think again it was this idea that that the celebrities of the day were going to the Crusades. They were hearing the message that Billy Graham was sharing. They were coming to know Christ along with regular folks who would come to the Crusades as well.
Todd,
can I just do one thing, Ainsley? Let's bring in Pastor Paula White. She would like to weigh in and join us now via the telephone. Todd, stick around. She is the senior pastor of the Destiny Christian Center, longtime spiritual counselor to President Trump, among others, and chairwoman of the President Trump's Evangelical Advisory Board. Paula, did you have your chance to meet Billy Graham?
Good morning, everyone. I absolutely did, and one of the most amazing men, as you've been saying. First off, I offer our condolences and our love and our prayers to all of the family, to his grandchildren. I've gotten to know so many of them, and he was absolutely one of the most loving. As you said, I always felt like I was in the presence of God when I was with Dr. Billy Graham. He just oozed out of him, and he was such a strong man, a mighty man, a man of faith, a man of integrity, and what an honor and what a loss that all of our hearts grieve today.
Yeah. Paula, as a minister, what do you say to all of us? Our hearts are grieving. This is a man, with everything we're going through as a nation, and with ISIS and with terrorism, and just politics. We look at him, and he's someone we all want to be like, he and his wife and his family, because they never really talked about politics. They loved everyone. Most important to them was sharing the love of Jesus Christ and being a good witness to him and being loving and loving all of God's children. And now that with his passing, we all grieve, and I wanted to get your perspective. Who's the next Billy Graham? Because our country needs him so much, and I feel like we're grieving. We know that he's celebrating in heaven, but we grieve for our nation because we need leaders like this.
Well, instantly first, as we know the Word of God says, we do grieve, and as believers, we don't lose hope or grieve as those that do not have that relationship with Jesus Christ, because we do know that he is rejoicing. We do know that that all of heaven and all of the angels are rejoicing, and he's in that great cloud of witnesses. It's interesting, there was a study done by Tulane University about a decade ago, and it talked about religion and politics and society and the socioeconomic that faith played in America. And it said that Billy Graham was, as noted, America's pastor. He was the voice. And it said that even our culture, things have changed so much. So who is that voice? And it did not identify one single person, but it put about 5 of us in a place. I think it's imperative that the body of Christ rise up as the heart of God and as the voice of God, and that we influence many places. It has to be along this same example, because he walked out the example of Jesus Christ. He walked as the voice. He lived as that voice. He simply lived out his faith according to the Word of God.
And there we have it, remembering America's pastor, Billy Graham, dead at the age of 99. You're listening to KIDO Talk Radio. Remember, when you hear Fox News on the radio, you're listening to KIDO Talk Radio. My name is Kevin Miller. We'd love to hear your thoughts about Reverend Graham. You're listening to KIDO Talk Radio.
He preached to more people than anyone in world history.
Follow Jesus. Let him lead you home.
An evangelist who touched tens of millions, called by some the Protestant Pope.
There are problems of sin and habit that cannot be solved outside the person of our Lord Jesus Christ.
Graham became a confidant of presidents, helping them with their problems. He spoke at 7 inaugurations. Graham lived his life with a sense of humility and integrity that endeared him to millions worldwide.
If you remember nothing that I say tonight, except one thing I want you to remember: God loves you.
Brett Baer, Fox News.
And let's go to the phones at KIDO Talk Radio. Let's go to Gary in Boise that wants to talk about Billy Graham. Good morning, Gary.
Good morning, Kevin. Reverend Graham came to Boise, I think it was in the 80s, and had a massive rally here. One of the things that impressed me is I believe Jesus told his followers to be wise as serpents and guileless as doves. Graham, knowing that things could get really rough if he got bad press or there was any scandal, was followed around by his request by one of the big accounting firms. I think it was Price Waterhouse. After his big, Billy Graham rally here in Boise, they took out a 2-page, 2 full pages in the Idaho Statesman where Price Waterhouse gave the audited figures of the rally itself, income, expenditures, and things like that, so that there was no question about Graham, benefiting unreasonably from the rally that he held. So not only was the man holy, he was also very wise in the ways of the world, how to avoid trouble or scandal.
Well, we'd love to see that today, wouldn't we?
Yes.
Gary, anything else you'd like to say about Reverend Graham?
No, just a word: transparency.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you.
All right. Let's go to Hank in Boise with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Hank.
Good morning. Reverend Graham's basically was lucky in a sense that his breakthrough to the national scene came in 1948, because that was the beginning of the debut of national TV networks. And I'll say this for him: he never lost his integrity. You can have Jim Baker or other people like Jimmy Swaggart, get tempted by their positions, and he always maintained integrity, which I'll have to hand it to him. But not all the presidents necessarily admired him. Harry Truman considered him a big faker and refused to have him at the White House when he was president of the United States. And so it wasn't like he was universally loved by all the presidents. And if I can comment real briefly, by the way, on Butch's latest little scrape, or Butchie Baby's latest scrape, there's another $1.5 million settlement paid to Sarah Scott for another wrongful firing.
Well, what do you mean his latest scrape? You're the only one that reports anything about the governor, Hank, because he's got everybody else in the bag.
Well, I'm just saying that this governor, you made the statement or comment earlier that the governor was not engaged. He's very much engaged when it comes to his own personal power and prerogatives. He's not necessarily engaged on policy so much as basically how it affects Butchie Baby. You never understand Butch unless you see that his being in public office has everything to do with ego and personal self. He's not a selfless public servant. Let's put it that way.
Well, no, and I go back to what Dr. Ahlquist said yesterday. It'll be nice to have a governor who's engaged.
Yeah, he's very much like his turf, like on the Central Committee of his turf. He's very much engaged if his personal power and impact is behind the scenes is threatened. He is very much engaged, in fact, too much engaged. But he's not oriented towards policy as much. He's oriented. It's like I said before. Once you understand that about Butch, everything else about Butch makes sense.
Can we have a moment of candor here?
Yes.
And this is a small state run by an elite power structure. And, we've ruffled their feathers. We come close to the fire, and then we've got to back off a little. And we'll acknowledge that. But when you go back to the prison scandal, the fight clubs, the Internet debacle, that nobody was ever charged, nobody went to prison, no harm, no foul, no scandal, even though millions have been paid out, where's the transparency that we've seen with Billy Graham when it comes to the Otter administration?
There is none,
and quite frankly, that's why the governor will not come on this program, because of the people that call in and listen to this show.
Well, there's another thing too, and
we're not in his pocket.
Well, but a lot of the foundations of what's gone on in the corruption has its beginnings with Bert Kenthorne.
Well, good point. But we're talking about Governor Otter. Traffic and weather together at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Dave. And Kevin Miller in the morning here. Coming up, our great friend Dave Petso. Fox News next, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.